Yeah, I was so struck by Joanna's comment about the lack of humor here, and I think it's pretty hard given the subject matter and things like that. But I have this joke about two robots walking into an Apple Genius bar, but I'll save that for later. So actually, because we're probably running a little behind, I'd like to introduce our next presenter, who is Art Muldoon, who is the CEO and co-founder of Accordant Media, and he's going to do a special research presentation. We've been working closely with Accordant for about a year now as they've been developing this RTB Marketplace report, because like I said earlier in my introduction, we really like openness and transparency, because we like covering these markets honestly and objectively. And one of the things that's great about it is that there's a lot of data available, but it still needs to be organized and contextualized. So Accordant's been generous enough to share some of their data through their touch points with the industry, and we've been tracking it quarterly and reporting on it. And as soon as he presents it, I'm going to blog it and put it up online. So on that, and just for some background, prior to co-founding Accordant, which by the way is a non-agency holding company, totally independent trading desk that works with brands and other agencies. In February of 2010, he had some chops at some digital agencies, including senior vice president at Aegis' Isobar unit. He was at Buzz Agent and Avenue A Razorfish. So he's got some good DNA. Art?
Okay, good morning, everybody. How are you? So like the end of the first quarter of the day. Joe told me I could not lip sync today, and his expectations, I thought, were for 15 minutes, and I saw on the schedule it's 30, so I'm going to speak slowly. We didn't sing the national anthem either. But we're really pleased to be here. I'm really pleased to be here on behalf of Accordant Media today and share with you some of the research findings that we're going to be releasing at the show today. Let's see if it's going. Okay, here we go. So for those of you who aren't familiar with Accordant, we are among the leading independent trading desks in the industry. And as an independent, we really are programmatic media specialists. It's what we do only all day long. We focus on the ability to deliver great programmatic media solutions to both agencies, but also directly to marketers. We don't discriminate. We really are excited about the evolution of programmatic and are very focused on it. Just curious, how many people in the room are on the buy side of RTB buying in this space today? So maybe about a third of you. Setting maybe the context for this as what a trading desk means as the way we operate. And we are not a DSP, which we would consider to be more of a pure tech company. We're not an ad agency. We're really a specialist buyer. And in doing so, we've been focusing on the ability to leverage access to exchange-traded media. And when we started 3 years ago, RTB for us was really about the display channel. But today, 3 years later, we're really buying programmatically across 7 different channels, from display, video. We've launched a mobile platform this past year, social, email, in-stream audio, and digital out-of-home. I think TV is still in the distance, but this is what we're actively integrating into a system today, which it consists of both some of our own technologies as well as some licensed technologies. The technologies that we own, that we've developed, the panel that we just listened to talked about the data management platform and how that could really provide an engine for intelligence. For us, our DMP that we call Audience Optics is our custom audience segment engine, and it really is the basis for a lot of the data that we're going to present today. We also have developed our own bidder, and the technology around that gives us the access to the real-time markets and the data and the insights that come out of the auction. And so that also provides us with a lot of insight into what's happening, how prices are moving, how supply availability changes, and what we're doing against that. And then the third thing we do that we've built out is our own reporting portal for our clients. And so that's all just to set the stage for what we want to do today is release here exclusively at the OMA our Q4 RTB Marketplace Report. And for us, we've designed this as something we release every quarter. Our analytics team puts this together, and it's really just our intention to participate in the conversation and share with you all who are buyers in the marketplace what we're experiencing. And we'll go through both the overall kind of market trends that we see, but also the particular pricing dynamics that we're finding. And we want to just help people maybe level set their experiences against ours and see if we can't all look at this as a vibrant, thriving ecosystem that we're all participating in. We're not research analysts. The information that we present is truly more at like a 0 to 500 foot level of what we're absolutely directly experiencing every day. And so with that, some of the pricing information that you'll see here is very subjective to the actual campaigns that we're buying. We're not going to report, we can't report on what everybody's paying at the auction, but we can tell you on an index basis if we're paying more or less on average over time. And it's based on the blend of types of clients that we have, types of tactics that we're running in the marketplace, and so forth. So to give you maybe a little bit more of an insider background and how to kind of filter this information, I'd say 60 to 70% of the work we're doing is very performance-based, and so there'll be a weighting of the information here towards performance-based tactics, clients, and then our tactics though really range from the very sort of bottom of the funnel, retargeting, win-backs, to mid-tier, where we're really focusing on tactics around specific types of content, contextual environments we're looking for, to then top of the funnel, prospecting, and really using algorithmic solutions to understand the signals that we can derive out of all the noise from all the data points that we see. And I think that the group of advertisers, we worked with about 100 different advertisers in 2012, and they were really representative of a lot of different industry segments. So I wouldn't say that there's any particular bias towards one industry or another in that. So with that, we're really pleased to be releasing this quarterly report today. And if you'd like a copy, you can feel free to email me, art@Accordant Media, or info@Accordant Media, or on our website. There's a box, and we'll be happy to send that out to you. Overall, what we've seen for 2012 is a doubling in the size of the RTB marketplace globally. And the U.S. is the most mature market, and in North America, we've seen 78% growth in the total volume of auctions that occurred during the year. So the U.S. might represent about just under 50% of the total global market as we see it, and we see that even for being such a large portion of the whole, there's significant growth that's still taking place there. So it's extremely, extremely strong and growing. We also, overall, we'll talk today about the vibrant ecosystem that we're in every day. One measure that we look at, and we talk to our publisher and supply partners in the marketplace that they're very keenly aware of, is how are CPM supported in the marketplace. And we're reporting in for Q4, the overall average CPMs we paid were slightly lower than they were in Q3 and slightly lower than a year ago. But when we overlay that in the context of the massive amount of growth of supply that's come into the marketplace, CPMs have more than held firm, and we're also finding ways to evaluate the extent to which there's more premium inventory available versus less premium that really hasn't really worked. So we also are kind of keenly monitoring the extent to which supply is being dumped into this marketplace, or it's actually being tested into with really quality premium suppliers. Click-through rates, we cringe at measuring and reporting on click-through rates, but clients still do think of it as a way to cautiously get into programmatic media buying to start to see if there's a pulse out there and if it's really working. And we've noticed and we found that over the last year, in general, click-through rates seem to be trending higher than they were a year ago. It could be a function of the way we've optimized, but we think overall in the industry and the quality of inventory that we're finding is very good, and it's engaging to some different degrees. And so a lot of the themes I think that we and other trading desks are doing are using analytics to really figure out how we can test in to more premium types of inventory and solutions that we can really see have a return for us. Last panel, we were just talking about cross-screen through Joanna and the research that she's looking to do in the future. We are measuring the ability to deliver an engaged audience, whether they be on a display, video, or mobile environment, and maybe it's concurrent, and we can test all that. So for look at what we've been seeing in North America, primarily the U.S. and Canada. The blue really shows the overall growth of the volume of auctions that took place throughout the year. And when we look at this on a daily basis, but for the year, it's really also interesting for us to notice that it looks like a lot of different spikes, and it really shows the trough that takes place every weekend of the year. And so when we look at buying in an RTB environment, there are definitely daily changes in the marketplace and decisions that you make, whether it's a certain day of the week or a weekend. The line across that is actually our average CPMs that we're paying throughout the year, and it goes in different trends. But I think most notably, in the summer, we were adding new campaigns. We also saw new tactics that we were testing and paying higher CPMs, and we started optimizing, and we were able to kind of optimize that into a more normalized CPM range that we started the year out at. And then I'll get into it at the end when we've got a little snapshot into what we experienced during the holiday season in Q4. But you can see here that there was clearly a jump in the CPMs that took place at the end of the year, and there was a lot of flight to, I think, particularly premium inventory. And I think there's good news here for those premium publishers that we can use RTB to identify inventory that is very productive for our advertiser clients versus what isn't, and the willingness to pay a higher CPM for actual media that works. So when we look globally at the marketplace that we see, I'll also caveat this, that Accordant's exposure is really North America, Europe, South America. We don't really do that much work in Asia. So when we look at relative growth in the marketplace, unfortunately, we won't be able to understand what Asian countries do in the context of this. But overall, you'll see here that the top 7 markets, really, the U.S., the UK, France, Brazil, Canada, Germany, and Italy, if you can't see all that, are really at a pretty significant scale of volume, which is represented by the red line. The U.S., you can see it goes right up. It's almost 50% of the total global market. But the blue line represents the most recent quarterly growth rates. And what's interesting for us to see here is that the largest 3 spikes here are the Russian Federation, Turkey, and Poland. And we've seen throughout the year that there's a consistent growth, and it's still pretty strong growth among Western European countries, but there's a really interesting pickup going on right now among Eastern European countries. And then a spotlight, we've been doing a lot of work in Canada, running several dozen different advertiser campaigns there, and following that pretty closely over the past year. For those of you thinking about entering the Canadian marketplace and targeting in Canada, there's a really rich opportunity of premium suppliers that's going on there. It's a really exciting market right now, and I think there's a lot more trading desk activity that's being planned for 2013 there as a result. So there's sort of 2 phases that took place in the Canadian market development this past year from the supply side. Early on, Q2, the CPACs, which is the Canadian Premium Audience Exchange, it's Rogers Cable, Shaw, the CBC, made a concerted effort jointly to participate in the Canadian marketplace. And so that really brought in a lot of premium supply into the market, both on the display and in the video side. And then in Q4, MSN and Microsoft also made a commitment, and I think they announced a few months ago something like 4 billion impressions that they were going to be adding during Q4. And so, as you can see, the growth of the market in Canada is really exciting and very connected to some of the work we're doing here in North America. A big topic for us, kind of way we editorialize through the data that we see, is as buyers in the market every day, we're looking for more transparency from the publisher side to understand the opportunity and what the impressions really are that we're bidding on. And so we measure the amount of the supply of inventory that is known at the auction to be either above the fold or below the fold, for that matter. It's still valuable to know either. And as you see here, from Q2 to Q3 to Q4, the top box is the below the fold, the middle is the above the fold, and it's really overall changed very little throughout the year. And so we're really, both trying to evaluate and understand where we do know the fold position, how it performs and what we can do with it, but also really stressing that we're doing testing to try to support ways to get more visibility into the ad at the auction. We should, this is probably a good point or a good time to differentiate between the nuance of knowing the position if it's above the fold versus the viewability. We're working with data providers to help us understand the ultimate viewability of an ad impression, and that is an ad may initially be placed below the fold, but subsequently viewed during a user session. And so there's measurement efforts to understand the extent to which a certain proportion of the ad is in the visible screen for a certain period of time to make it become viewable. So we really are looking to understand the predictive capability, the predictive knowledge, to know if an ad placement on average is viewed 30% of the time. Do we bid, at a 30% of the full value, so that we get to net that out over time. So we think that there's not enough sort of viewability in the marketplace right now, and we're tracking that. And that might be one of the anchors to growth we have in this space right now. And another point that we track that I hope is interesting to everybody here is, the real power that is offered with programmatic media buying. And as we look from over the quarters last year at the total number of sites that we bought ads programmatically on, it grew from 237,000 different sites in Q1 to nearly 500,000 different sites in Q4. But not only, and so obviously, there's a good example that a media planner and agency would have a tough time duplicating that on their own. But we also look to say that we use data and algorithms to also recognize that let's say that the top 100 sites that we use in terms of volume do represent a pretty large part of the whole. And click that off. Thank you. So what we're tracking in each quarter is the proportion that the top 100 sites by volume that we used were as a percentage of the total volume. So it's interesting. There's some consolidation that we're looking at, where 35% of our total volume was obtained through the 100 largest sites we used in Q1, to 47% of the total volume we purchased in Q4 came from 100 sites. So there's sort of a barbell effect where we're getting some really good scale from, say, from 100 sites, but at the same time, we're going to 500,000 sites that we're cherry picking from to get the sort of additional scale at equivalent efficiencies. So I think this is where it gets exciting for programmatic media buying to see that there is value in the long tail, but you need a real disciplined analytic approach to find that. I love this pop-up. So we just touched in the last panel on mobile and the lack of mobile data today. So here's a little bit for you. We launched Accordant Mobile as a platform solution. It's integrated with our other channels this past year, largely because our advertiser clients are recognizing that there's a huge opportunity in mobile. The industry is very fragmented. It's very difficult to both launch, track, optimize, and really provide insights around how mobile is working or not. And so we went out to do that. And over the last quarter, as we're starting to really get into different ways of tracking mobile, and one of the challenges is you can track web mobile. The in-app mobile provides a little more of a set of difficulties around technical implementations that are required to support that. But we're operating with both of these types of disciplines to try to bring that together. We found that through the available RTB auctions, over 73% of the mobile impressions that we purchased were Android-based, the remaining being the iOS. And we also think about this as, the iOS is primarily the iPhone and the iPad, but the Android is multiple devices, multiple users. There's a much sort of richer set of targeting that can be done across the multiple different sort of iterations of Android systems than the iOS. But for all of that, when we started looking at the types of ways we were measuring conversion, we noticed that the iOS delivered ads actually converted for our purposes 5 to 1 better than on the Android. So we're finding that at least, this is early going and we're kind of just throwing it out there what we're experiencing. But we're recognizing that there's a lot of data mining and opportunities that we think are still available in the Android-based environment. But for right now in the early going, we're seeing the iOS system converting much better. So there's a little data. Take it as well. Now I'll really conclude with some insights or from our experiences in Q4 and the holiday season. Starting with the way we looked at the pricing environment. This is just now the Q4 period. You'll see that overall supply of inventory was pretty constant. You can see some dips that notably around Thanksgiving and Christmas time, so that maps out against what we'd expect. But we also were really pleasantly surprised to see that there was a lot of holiday time inventory available in the RTB Marketplace. There was some suggestions that the upfront guaranteed media buying world was really going to be taking the impressions out of the marketplace, and they wouldn't be available in the RTB space for the holidays time, but they actually really were available. But I think significantly, you can see right at Thanksgiving, for us, the price, the CPMs we paid on average jumped 20%. And so it was certainly a much more competitive marketplace as we're not overly weighted with, say, holiday retail clients, but we have some, but the overall marketplace was definitely much more competitive right at Thanksgiving through the end of the year. Q4 is an interesting period there, and I think for RTB, this year we were interrupted in late October by Hurricane Sandy, and you can see this sort of a subtle trough towards the end of October, and that has sort of real-time implications. We had the presidential election in early November, and then we had the holiday season. So there's a little bit of predictability, but also event-driven opportunity that takes place in the RTB environment. Second, for the Q4, if we look at sort of the conversions that we were able to achieve, our conversion rates. So this is the top line is the same overall CPM prices that we paid, but then we now look at, well, how did our media convert for the prices that we did pay? And you can see we're kind of all over the board for the first half of the quarter. Went indexed down and then came back up. But I think where programmatic media buying and media trading desks really kind of shine are like in the holiday season where you see, yes, the CPMs might have been 20% higher, but they're sort of flat 20% higher, but the conversion rates start to increase. And so that's where optimization activities are taking place, and you're getting greater efficiency out of those prices that you're paying. And certainly that is something that is exciting and interesting to track throughout those kinds of peak seasons like the holidays. And then finally, say that we took a look at categories of inventory that we were buying to determine or see what might have been teased out, any insights that came out of that area. And what's interesting is, up until Thanksgiving, the categories all kind of trended relatively together. But there's an interesting separation that took place right at Thanksgiving, where news and politics categories really popped in terms of the CPMs that we're paying for them, as well as travel and entertainment. But the lower line throughout that is just sort of the general categories were really pretty steady. So I think here is another suggestion that both in targeting audiences and targeting contextually relevant environments and premium environments, there is a pursuit of that. It's competitive, and a return that we're seeing for that. So I'll conclude by saying now as we look going into 2013, there's some exciting drivers to propel the marketplace, and then there are also some anchors that we talked about that we're looking at. On the acceleration side, certainly the top global markets, those top 7 that I referenced, are marketplaces that are really scaling very well. There's a lot of buy side and sell side participation and enthusiasm. We're seeing more advertisers sort of tiptoeing in to the programmatic media world and are looking for very sort of defined, tangible, quantitative, rationale reasons to come into the marketplace. We'll see more of that. And the evolution of this multi-channel, multi-screen programmatic marketplace is also continuing to accelerate. Display, video, mobile are really the core channels. Social, I actually didn't flag earlier, but second half of the year, the introduction of the Facebook exchange, added to a lot of the supply growth that we saw throughout the year. So social is both, is really talking about as Facebook and the FBX and the real-time space today, but there's a coordinated kind of non-real-time social targeting as well. And then some of the things that we really want to, impediments that we want to really try to unlock and focus on in this year, and we're going to be tracking in these studies, is looking at that quality-quantity mix of RTB impressions and really trying to understand how we can show that this ecosystem is being supported by high-quality publishers with great inventory and great placements. So the viewability, the premium, is going to be an important kind of metric to track this year. We talked earlier on the discussions today, channel attribution. Advertisers are really constantly questioning the incremental value for retargeting. How do I know that I wasn't going to get that customer anyway, or am I getting it sooner? And what are the different tactics for that? So there's a lot of measurements that we can do in the real-time space around that, and really show that while this has been a very complex ecosystem and environment to navigate, there's an enormous amount of efficiencies for marketers that can be pulled out of this. So anyway, those are some of our highlights from the report. We hope you enjoy it, and we'd love your feedback as you read it. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Art. Actually, I have one quick question. Since the Canada example was really interesting, I wonder if there are lessons to be learned from the Canadian example of seeing more premium inventory come online. Did you also see corresponding rises in CPMs and conversions from that quality inventory?
Yeah, we do. We we published a case study last year with Microsoft, actually, to show that over a 3-month period, we recognized that we paid a 3x higher CPM on Microsoft inventory, which is very premium inventory, but we got an 8x improvement in the conversion rates for doing that. That was offered transparently, and that's what we give kudos to the Canadian publishers, because their inventory is transparent, and we know what we're buying in advance, and they're really putting themselves out there with experimenting from video placements to really premium, and are looking for support, because they internally have their own skeptics, so they're really trying to support this.
Well, I was really struck by the concentration of trading going on with the top 100 from the first quarter to the fourth quarter. So 2 questions. One, is there any seasonality that would explain that? But more, if it is organic and that's really happening, it's ironic, isn't it? Because, publishers say, everybody says premium publishers are loath to do this, but obviously they're releasing more inventory. So are you seeing more better biddable impressions coming into the marketplace from the top 100?
So it's clear that they're participating, but it's also clear from our data that they're not fully sharing the actual placement and the information, because they may be skeptical or afraid of the idea of cannibalization, that if we all truly know all of where the impression is and how it's being positioned, that it might cannibalize the upfront sales effort. So we're really trying to measure and show where we're paying premium. And it was actually called out last session that in some cases we're paying a premium to what the ad sales team might be selling the inventory for. And isn't that great? Because if ultimately we know sort of the private value of an impression for a particular advertiser, and we're willing to pay get a return on that, this is a great marketplace for that. So there's some seasonality, but I think that we consistently saw that we were growing the proportion of our buys, and maybe we're looking for more scale for our advertisers at efficiency, but that happened throughout the year.
Art Muldoon, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
We're going to take about a 20-minute coffee break. I wanted to remind everyone, I know we're at standing room only, and the temptation in this context is to put some of these seats up for bid. But there are empty seats up front, so as you come